All right. So today we are talking about binary molecular compounds. So let me just write here. Binary molecular compounds. So these ones are also known as covalent compounds. Now, how do you recognize that this is a covalent compound? This is an ionic compound. So how do you recognize a covalent compound? So the answer is it will have non-metals only. For example, if you have like CO, so C is a non-metal and O is a non-metal. So that is a covalent compound. Now when it contains metal and a non-metal, then it is ionic. For example, if we say NaCl, Na is a metal and Cl is a non-metal. So this one is an ionic compound, while this one with two non-metals is a covalent compound. So that's how you recognize a covalent compound and an ionic compound. But we are trying to define a binary covalent compound. So what is this binary covalent compound? So it is a covalent compound that contains two types of, because it's covalent, it should be non-metal elements. So for example, CO has carbon and oxygen only. If we do CO2, this one also has carbon and oxygen only, so it is a binary compound. So if we have C2H6, this one has carbon and hydrogen only, so it is a binary compound. So all these are binary compounds. So a binary compound must contain two types of elements. Not two elements as in the case of a number 2, but you should have two types of elements. For example, here we just have only two elements, this carbon and oxygen. Here you can see we have three elements, but these three elements are two types. We have carbon here and two oxygens here. So that's what we mean when we say two types of elements. Now, how do you name binary covalent compound? So naming binary covalent compound. So first of all, let's discuss the prefixes. To name covalent binary compounds, we use prefixes, and you will see why these prefixes are important. So if you have one of an atom, so if you have one atom, the prefix is mono. So just skip these and you will see why they are important. If you have two atoms, the prefix is di. If you have three atoms, the prefix is tri. 4 atoms, it is tetra. 5 atoms, it is penta. 6 atoms, it is hexa. 7 atoms, usually we use hepta or septa, so I'll just say hepta. 8 atoms, we use octa. 9 atoms, we use nona. And 10 atoms, we use deca. So what does it mean? So let's say we have NO. How do we name that? So what we do is the first element here, this is element 1. This is element 1. This one, element 2. So the first element has the name as the element itself. So the first element has the name as the element itself. But the second element has ID at the end. So also when naming, use the prefixes. So when naming, use the prefixes. So what example do we have? Here we have an example, NO. Now, when there is only one element at the beginning, when there is only one first element, don't use prefix. For example, here there is one nitrogen here, so I'll just say nitrogen. So as we said, the first element has the name as the element itself, so this N becomes nitrogen. But because there is only one first element, we don't use prefix. There is only one nitrogen here, so we are just going to call it nitrogen. But the second element must always have prefix. The second element must always have a prefix. So The second element here should be, because there is one oxygen, so we'll come here, 1. So it will be monoxide. So because we are saying the second element must always have a prefix. So we have one nitrogen here, but because it's the first element, we just call it nitrogen. We have one oxygen here, because it's the second element. The second element must always have a prefix. So a prefix for 1 is mono. So we are going to call this element, this compound, nitrogen monoxide, which means we have nitrogen with 1 oxygen. That's what it means. So that is elements and prefixes, or how we name covalent compound. So let's practice more naming here. Let's go to other compounds that we can name. I just need to make sure that we know where we are. I'm leaving that part over there so that I can use it. So let's take let's take another molecule, N2O. Now, if the first molecule has more than 1 atom, use prefix. So if the first molecule has more than 1 atom, use prefix. So nitrogen here, we have 2 nitrogen and 1 oxygen. So 2 is di. But you know that the first one, we name it as the element itself. So this one will be dinitrogen. Dinitrogen, because there are 2 nitrogens. But we know that the second element has an I at the end, and there is 1 oxygen. So dinitrogen, because there is 1 oxygen, it will be monoxide. So dinitrogen monoxide. So let's look at another molecule, CO2. So we have 1 carbon at the beginning and 2 oxygens here. So because the first molecule has 1 atom, or the first element has 1 atom here, we just call it carbon. We don't say monocarbon because it's the first element. So we just say carbon. But there are 2 oxygens here, so we call it carbon dioxide. Another molecule, N3. Is it N3? It should be N2. So another molecule, N2O3. So we have 2 of nitrogen here and 3 of oxygen. So definitely this one will be di-nitrogen, telling us that we have 2 nitrogen, but we have 3 oxygens. So 3 goes with tri. So dinitrogen trioxide. So that tells us that we have 3 oxygens and we have 2 nitrogens. Let's go to look at another molecule, P4O10. So we have 4 of these, so it should be tetra phosphorus, and we have 10 of these, decoxide. So this is phosphorus decoxide. So we don't want to say, I mean, this one can be like deca oxide, but instead of deca oxide, because it sounds weird, we just remove A here and just put O. So it becomes tetra phosphorus because there are 4 phosphorus atoms, decoxide because there are 10 oxygen atoms. Let's see another atom that we can name, SO3. So this SO3, keep it because it's gonna come on your exam. So you just need to take note of it. So there is 1 sulfur and 3 oxygens. So this one becomes sulfur trioxide. It becomes sulfur trioxide. Then we have NBr, 1 nitrogen, NBr3. We have 1 nitrogen and 3 Br. So it becomes nitrogen tribromide. Let's see what else do I have. So you can have another atom, I, or another compound, ICl. So we have 1 of this I and 1 of this Cl. But the I, we don't put any prefix because it's the first element. So we just call it iodine. But the second element must have a prefix and must end with id. So iodine chloride. So that is the name of the binary compound. So I'll just also look at more names. SF6. So this one, there is 1 sulfur and 6 of these. So since sulfur is the first element, it has the name as it is, and since there is only 1, it will not have any prefix. but 6 is hexa. So we have 6 fluoride or 6 fluorine atoms. So hexa fluoride, sulfur hexafluoride. Hexa standing for 6. Now also let's look at Br. 3O8. So we have 3 bromine and 8 oxygens. So that's what we have here. So we say this is tri So this will be tri bromine. So that is tribromine. Remember, so the name itself comes from bromine, so we just put bromine there. But because there are 3 of them, so I'll put tribromine. So tribromine, and we have 8 oxygen. So 8 goes with octa. So tribromine octoxide. So as I said earlier, I could have said octa oxide, but it sounds weird. That's why I just get rid of A and just put octoxide. Let me look at maybe one more of these. I mean, any binary molecule, in terms of naming, you can name it the way I am naming this one here. So let's say I have N2O4. So this one is dinitrogen tetra, because there are 4 tetroxide. But as I said earlier, I don't want to say tetraoxide. I don't want to put A and O together. So I'll just say tetroxide. So there is one thing that we need to that I need you to emphasize on, is these 2 species. So we have SO3, and then we have SO3 2-. So if you have SO3 without any charge, so SO3 without So SO3 without any charge. SO3 without any charge is sulfur trioxide, while SO3 with -2 charge is a sulfite. So usually people will confuse the 2. When they see SO3, they will think it is sulfite, but it is not. It is sulfur trioxide. But when you see SO3 2-, that one is sulfite. So we need to take note of that. So just practice any types of you can practice any types of compounds that you have. I'll just add the last one here, CCl4. So this one has 1 carbon and 4 chlorine. So I'll call it carbon tetrachloride. This one can see. So carbon tetrachloride. So practice this kind of naming for binary ionic covalent compound. Just know that binary covalent compounds have 2 types of elements. All right, thank you.